Well, good morning or good afternoon, good night to everybody. And about a year ago, we were cruising on a boat away from Stavanger for the closing dinner of our 2019 AGM. And we were all going to live one of the most memorable experience ever. And if anyone had told us that day what 2020 would look like, we would probably have laughed loudly. Well, here am I, a year later, opening our first ever online AGM. And if I look back at that special night in Norway, I realize now that we embraced in a few hours all the core values of our network, actually. On our way to the island, we crossed several fish farms, reminding us of the importance of food in the economic development of our cities. We shared an extraordinary meal consisting of seasonal products coming from the neighboring Rogaland County. We lived a unique and authentic experience that more and more people are keen to find when traveling abroad. We shared our projects with colleagues, friends coming from all over the world and discussed about possible future collaborations. And this is what Délice is all about. And believe me, these core values are not going to disappear with the pandemic or with an hurricane. So today I'm happy to open the first meeting of our AGM. I have a special thought for our friends in Merida. Well, as we heard, you would normally have welcomed us for this meeting, and now you are currently facing a terrible hurricane. So let me introduce you to our host today, May Andersen, representing Stavanger, the halibut capital. A quiet strength maker, an ideal and beloved vice president of our board. Felipe Garcia, in the middle of the night, representing Tucson, the chimichanga capital and one of our most recent member cities. I guess that his barbecue skills and permanent smile led him in no time to the board of our network. Camille Benoit is our GM manager and she's based in Lyon. She's the heart and soul of our network. She's the one without whom nothing would really happen. And myself, Olivier Maret, representing Brussels, let's say the beer capital, where I lead food-related projects for the tourism board. I'll give you the floor, Camille.
Thank you very much, Olivier, for this nice introduction. Let's start by seeing who is with us this morning. So what I'll do is that I'll ask you all to take your phones and go to the website www.menti.com. And let's start by asking you to name your city through its most iconic food. So we have the halibut. Let's guess that this is from Stavanger. Let's see who else we have. Fries. Belgium, Brussels. Okay, it's easy so far. Chimichanga. Okay, so here we have our dream team of the presenters for this morning. Pistachio. So I'm guessing this is Gaziantep in Turkey. Pan con tomate. I'm guessing we are in Barcelona. These are my wild guesses. So what do we have now? Praline pie. This is guessing from Lyon. And then we have Balti. Balti. What is Balti? Is it from Tbilisi, Georgia? This would be my wild guess. Cape Classic. Here we are in Cape Winelands in South Africa. Wow, nice overview of food from around the world, let's say. So we are together for 60 minutes this morning to introduce what Délice Network is. Some of you are very familiar. Thanks for still being with us. And some of you are a bit less familiar. So we'll be telling you what we are, what we believe in, what makes us unique, what we do, and how you can take part. And this is the most important aspect. So back to your phones, please. I'll just start with a quick question. If a pandemic was not tying us down to the ground and you were to land in Buenos Aires tomorrow, what would be the first thing you would do? Of course, after a shower and a terrible flight. Would you find a tango performance, Would you look for the best place for a steak? Would you go take photos of the beautiful Casa Rosada? Would you visit a local food market? Again, log on to Menti and tell us what you think. Ooh, the steak is making people hungry. We have some tango dancers, but more and more people on the steak. Good, the food market is getting a bit higher up, but I'm guessing that the steak is what gets people's most attention. Of course, when you think of Buenos Aires, you are thinking about the amazing meat that they have there. And so when you land in a country, you often want to taste the local food. What we eat is what we are. To understand Délice, it's essential to understand the link that we make between a territory and its food. Food is universal. We all eat. It's the most universal thing. Whether it's in rural or urban areas, it's a very strong component of our lives, and therefore it has become a very strong component of our cultures. It's, of course, what we eat, the food itself, and how we eat it, all the celebrations around food. So I'm sure you fully agree that food gives a sense of place, just as much as language, clothing, architecture. It's really a core element. So Lyon was created by Délice was created by the city of Lyon back in 2007. In many ways, Lyon, that's recognized as the capital of gastronomy, the people in Lyon have always seen the impact of this worldwide reputation on food. It made the city attractive to live in, to invest in, to study in, to visit, of course. They've always seen the impact of Paul Bocuse as an icon. They wanted to take a step further within the municipality of Délice. So the network was initially created to think globally about how food can be used as an economic driver and a city attractiveness driver. It seems very obvious today, but when Délice was created, very little cities believed that food would become a strategic topic for local authorities. For many, it was just a private sector matter. It wasn't belonging to the public debate. But it seems so obvious today that it should, as food has a role to play in so much of a city's responsibility. But this is very new. When you think about it, food creates jobs. Food attracts tourists, investors, students. Food is an essential aspect of the sustainability plans. Food participates in the well-being and the health of the local citizens. Food is part of the local culture that needs to be protected and that can be promoted. And food is a very important tool for social cohesion among communities and generations. So when we think about it, how did we not focus on this earlier? Today, the global ecosystem is filled with different organizations working around food, but much more on the sustainability and health angle that is very new and very in the trend today. The specificity of Délice is to consider food first as a strong cultural component linked to pleasure and taste that will have an impact on all of these items that you see here. So 32 cities over 4 continents have joined the Délice dynamic. They are spread all around the continents, as you see here. The Africa is still pretty low, but we are working on it. And these are just a few examples. You don't have the whole list here. But as you'll see, not all cities are the most trendy food cities, because that is not essential to us. However, all cities have a food culture, and that is essential to us. So what are the Délice cities? They are those who share our transversal approach and those who are actively developing projects and initiatives around food. Food is universal, as I mentioned, but it's very interesting to see the different approaches cities have when using it as a tool for their development. And this is, again, very linked to culture. In Southern Europe, don't touch my meal. It's a lot about cultural preservation and promotion. You can't do that much with food. You can't play around with it too much. In Northern Europe, how can I do better? It's much more around innovation and sustainability in Scandinavia. In the USA, what do people want? Here, the projects are driven by economic development. It's about finding and following the trends, as you see here with the craft breweries. And the last example could be China. Give me the best. Here it's about offering the top of the top. And so about maybe attracting the best chefs from around the world who will be cooking the best French food, for example, in China to offer to their people in their restaurants. So diversity is the recipe of what brings the strength of this network. But you may wonder how we choose some cities rather than others. What brings them together is here. All our cities have a food sector. The food sector is the playground we work with. The food sector will be, of course, the restaurants, the food producers, the entrepreneurs, the people organizing events, the craft brewers, the winemakers. They are the playground. In all of our cities, the municipality, the DMOs, the local institutions have chosen food as a strategic driver. They are acting on it. They are running projects. They are committed to working on this topic. All of our cities, of course, have a motivation in international cooperation, as we are a global network. And very important, we share some values about sustainability, about social well-being, about the pleasure of food, about bringing people together. We've identified over the years 4 areas where a city can successfully leverage projects through food. First, it's working on the food culture. It's preserving, identifying, and preserving the food culture to make sure that even though we're in a globalized world, your city has its preserved food culture. Then it's the food sector. As I mentioned, it's the driving force of economic development, and it needs to be stimulated and worked on by the city institutions. Then we have the food scene. The food scene is more about the people behind the food. It's about the chefs. It's about the producers. It's the success stories. And these people can be used as ambassadors and influencers for the city. And then we have food policies that ensure that food is made available with considerations to the environment, to social barriers, to health. And this is where the city can really activate some initiatives through public policies, of course. Let's try to illustrate this with some examples. So back on your phone, please. And I have a couple questions for you. Food culture. If I ask you, please don't cheat, the ones who are involved, but which of these cities has its gastronomy recognized as a UNESCO intangible heritage? Is it Mérida in Mexico? Is it Guangzhou in China? Is it Tbilisi in Georgia? Which of these cities has its gastronomy recognized by the UNESCO? Okay, Mérida, 4 votes, 5 votes. Well, I think the answer is clear, indeed. So it's not exactly Mérida, it's whole of Mexican gastronomy, but it was the first country who had its food recognized as an intangible heritage. It's pretty huge in terms of the symbol. Next question about the food sector. So again, economic development. Which of these cities has the highest number of craft breweries per capita? Is it Brussels? Is it Leipzig? Or is it Portland? Where do we make the most craft breweries? Where are there the most businesses making beer and therefore employing people? So Brussels comes up on the top, followed by Portland, then Leipzig. The correct answer is Portland. Portland in the US. Now people are voting for Portland. Portland in the US has the highest number of craft breweries per capita. It's huge. It's a huge industry and it's become a huge employer.
More than 50 craft breweries in Portland and around 10 craft breweries in Brussels.
There we go. So you admit, Olivier, that...
I voted for Portland.
Now, food scene. Here again, it's about the people. It's about drawing attractiveness. So which of these cities received the most Michelin stars in 2019? It's not the top of the world, but we've put, of course, the Délice cities here. So Hong Kong tied up with Barcelona. Hong Kong is getting the most votes. Lyon, no one believes in Lyon. You're right, it's Hong Kong. Hong Kong is number 7 in the world. Barcelona is number 10, and Lyon is not in the ranking. So again, it's not all about Michelin stars. It never has been and it never will be, but it is a good indicator on how attractive the food scene can be. And of course, it draws a lot of press, as we know. So I hope with this, you understand a bit more these 4 pillars that are what we work on as a network. Oh, sorry, there was number 4, food policies. So this one is an interesting one. There's one of these cities in which chefs are allowed to collect their ingredients on any private or public land. Mushrooms, leaves, berries. They can go in your garden and pick a mushroom if they like, because they consider that it's natural ingredients. Gothenburg, Cali, or Lisbon. You are very right. It's the Sweden, and the policy is called the right of public access, and it really forbids the idea of private ownership of food. And this again is through local policies that is made possible. And if you can imagine that a chef can go anywhere to pick his own food, it will have, of course, an impact on the quality of the food that is served. So now, what is the purpose of our network? You understand what we believe in and how we work around food. Now you must still wonder how we work as an organization. 3 simple words: learn, share, connect. Learn is about gaining knowledge on specific topic of interest of the majority of cities. So our representatives are not all 100 focused on food. They come from city institutions, municipalities, counties. They are sometimes in economic development, sometimes in international affairs. They are working within food projects, but are not always fully committed to food. So they use Délice to keep an eye on the trends and all the challenges on the global scale. So for example, here we were in Lausanne, Switzerland, and we were having a conference on the concept of terroir and how it can be used in the marketing strategies of cities. Terroir that is pretty linked to rurality more than urban environments. Share, it's about taking the best of what the other cities have done. Best or worst sometimes maybe. There is no competition among the Délice cities, and they are all willing to share their best ideas. So here, for example, we were in Aarhus, in Denmark, where our partner was explaining the amazing work achieved by the municipality to reach an exceptionally high amount of organic and local food served in school kitchens. So they were explaining the project and how it was developed. So best practice sharing, basically. Connect, this is maybe the core aspect of our activity. Connect is about building multilateral projects among the cities. It's important to bring the Délice dynamic into the streets. We are an institutional network, but it should profit the people from the industry and the citizens. So this can be through student exchange programs, chef invitations, exchange of visibility among cities during different food events, invitation of key experts to a local conference, you name it. There are so many opportunities in which cities can connect through food. And here, for example, on this picture, it was in 2017, and it was a chef pairing organized in Montreal. So for a week, several chefs from Délice cities made their way to Montreal. They were paired up with a local chef in a local restaurant, and they created a unique menu together. It was at the occasion of a festival in Montreal, And it created great relationships among the chefs who had the opportunity to work together. It created a great momentum in Montreal with international menus all around the city. And it was, of course, it was a great collaboration project for the network. It's very important to understand that we are a city network. We are not a research institute. We are not a foundation. We are not a label for the best food cities. We are not a PR company for our city members. It's a tool for international cooperation. I like to compare Délice to Facebook. Facebook is a tool where people can decide to post, to share, to invite friends, and to bring value. If no one contributes to Facebook, it's just an empty shell. So each city, through its representatives, that again can be either municipality, tourism board, chambers of commerce, etc., they can decide how they want to use this tool. And as any tool, the more you use it, the more you take profit from it, and the more outcomes it brings to the cities. So each city involves in Délice in a very different way. So a few examples of how this runs. We meet in a member city twice a year. As Olivia mentioned, we should have been in Mérida this week. Unfortunately, we are all at home. These gatherings are of course essential to consolidate the network and have representatives get a good overview of the specificities of other members. This is very key to successful collaborations. We get to understand how things work in the city that we're visiting, and we get to know each other and work together as a group. And as a network, it's also about people, and this is very important as well. This network works because it remains small. 32 cities is a very small network compared to other city networks that you may be involved in. It's what makes it successful in the sense that each city has a representative that is very well integrated in the group. And the ties are made among the members and therefore the cities. It's so much easier to call a person that you've already met and that you know to ask him or her for advice or to work together on a project. So small is beautiful in Délice, and we believe that the quality of our network is linked to the fact that we remain pretty small. And there's what I call the power of food. Our topic is very sensitive and emotional for people all around the world. Whatever the cultural differences are, if you share a meal, the ice is broken immediately. So all of this participates in making sure that the cities get value out of the network. We talk about food, we talk about projects linked to food, and even though the core topic is economic development and sustainability, and it's of course very heavy and serious topics, it still concerns food. So there's a very emotional aspect to it, and this is what also makes the success of Délice. Here is, in a nutshell, what I had to say to you, but I think the most relevant way to understand what Délice is to hear the experiences from the members who are actually living Délice. So thank you to Mai, Felipe, and Olivier for being with us despite the early hours. And please share with us your experiences within the network. So we will start with Mai. So different partners within Stavanger are involved in the network. How has this profited to the city in terms of economic development and attractiveness? Can you tell us a bit more?
I can indeed. Thank you so much, Camille. First, I would like to say that before Stavanger became a member of Délice, the different institutions and organizations in the city worked very much separated, both on food, on the food scene, and also on the tourist destination work. But when we became a member of Délice, we were different partners that were given the opportunity to work together. So with different partners in Stavanger, the one who works together in the Délice work are the city, of course, because it's the city network, but it's also a representative from the county, from the university for food research. It is one person from the tourist destination company. It is one person from the biggest food festival that we have, and also one person from the economic development company. So this group were given the opportunity to work together. And that means that through this, we work together regionally. So we have this network Délice meeting in Stavanger, the partners, where we discuss what are the food strategies, what are the priorities in our region. And we travel to some of the Délice events together to get inspiration, to get knowledge, and then discuss how can we implement this in our city. And of course, this is the opportunity where we like to share some of the really great events that have happened for the last year in Stavanger at the food scene. Because after we started this Délice work, we were able to support the important people on our local food scene. And in 2016, we were really thrilled because that was then a city in Stavanger was rewarded a Michelin star. It was the first restaurant outside our capital who were given a star. And that was a great thing for us, for the city. And the next year, even a second restaurant was given a Michelin star. So this, for like many cities, these are not many restaurants, but for us, it was a big leap in being able to use food as part of our attractiveness. And of course, one of this restaurant was this year given 2 stars. And that is the only restaurant in Norway with 2 stars. So it's really big for us. And next year, the Nordic Michelin star event, where they're giving out the stars, will be arranged in Stavanger. And the good thing is that the city and the county has now taken responsibility to organize that event and link it into many other events. There will be a chef event, there will be a local producer event. So I do think that that we have linked together through Délice have been the reason why we are at the stage that we are now. So for us, it's been a great experience.
Thank you, Mai, very much. Going to Tucson, Arizona. So Tucson, you're one of the newest member within the network, so not much history, but maybe you can tell us what you were looking to achieve when you decided to join us as a member, and what is the achievement you find the most relevant so far? What have you taken out of the network?
So good morning to all of you, first of all, or good evening, or good, I don't know what time it is in your different cities, but I'm glad to see many of our friends and peers. Again, my name is Felipe Garcia with Tucson. As Camille mentioned, we are one of the newer members of the organization. So for us, it was very interesting because we were part of the UNESCO Creative Cities Network, and that has a very interesting scope of work and mission. But we were very interested in how you use that to make a better community and to get every individual working on your food economy from, of course, the restaurant, but all the way to the producers, and how we can integrate all of them. So I became aware of the Délice Network through a common friend of many of us. So I remember that I started researching online. I talked to some people in Puebla, Mexico, with the director of economic development in Puebla. And then, I remember very well that I was in Europe walking on the streets and talking to someone at the Délice Network, like for 1 hour. I was roaming around, I think it was Paris, walking on the streets and on my phone. And to me, it was fascinating to find an organization where people will be willing to collaborate, cooperate, and find information or share information about what they're doing to make the communities better. And again, when I looked at the cities that were represented, I was very impressed. Now, as a member, I can tell you I'm more impressed by the quality of the individuals that are in this organization, the passion, the knowledge that they have. So for us, the biggest achievement I think that we have found are a couple of things. First of all, the expertise and the knowledge, and being able to connect, send an email, make a phone call, a WhatsApp, a WeChat, and be able to access individuals and gather information, and everyone's so willing to collaborate. And number two, for us, it was very important also that we were developing in Tucson this amazing food scene. We were, again, connecting producers to consumers, to restaurants. But it's amazing how many times you don't believe your own story. Someone from the outside has to tell you that you're doing a good job. It was a great way last year to invite many of the members here to join us in Tucson in the spring, and to be able to hear from them, hey, are we doing the right things? Do you think that we're in the right path? So for us, again, it's been, for us in Tucson, a great way to connect with individuals around the world, to learn, and again, always very eager to see what's next and be challenging ourselves about what is next. I want to be the best Tucson in the world, but I want to learn from Barcelona, and I want to learn from Mérida and from Stavanger and every single individual in this organization.
Thank you very much, Felipe. Next question goes to, if this works, Olivier. So you are the representative of Brussels, but you're also the president of the network. I think you're one of those who have been investing the most in the organization over the past years. So what is the greatest value you see in the organization as representative of Brussels?
Okay, I'll be short and to the point, but allow me first to come back to the first question you asked about UNESCO heritage. Would just like to mention, as this is the first meeting Tbilisi is taking part to, that even if their food is not recognized as UNESCO heritage, the traditional wine-making culture in Georgia has been also recognized as UNESCO heritage. Just okay. I'll switch back to your question. And well, as you know, an important part of my job in Brussels is to develop projects around food and gastronomy. And to me, Délice has been, well, I've been involved for the last 10 years, and it has been a continuous source of inspiration for me, thanks to the non-competitive context between the member cities, and that's very important. But you also have to remember that if you want to be inspired by others, you also need to bring your own ideas and feed the others, and share successes and failures. And thanks to the medium size of our network, as you mentioned, it is very easy to develop personal relationships with the other representatives. And that's really a main asset, because you can, for example, send your strategic plan to a colleague, friend overseas and get the feedback. Or you can ask to other members, or they deal with sustainability in their own food events. Or, for example, you can also learn from someone else's failure and improve your business model. So this is really the greatest value for me in being part of the network.
Thank you, Olivier. Another series of questions, and we'll stay with you. If you were to summarize the value of your membership in one project, what would it be? There's been a lot where Brussels has been involved. What is the one you would like to share with us today?
It was a lesson taught to me some years ago about humility, and inspiration can come from anywhere. And some years ago, I've started a label for Belgian cuisine restaurants in Brussels after returning from a meeting in Puebla, Mexico, where they had developed a similar label. Honestly, before being involved in Délice, I would never have thought to be inspired by a Mexican city for a local project, because I had absolutely no contact with Mexico. And Délice is breaking the borders, bringing people closer. Délice is about motivation and involvement, like you mentioned, not about being a superstar food city or whatever. So you can really learn from all members, wherever they are and whatever they do. And Délice can confirm it. It's really what its baseline says: sharing, learning, and connecting.
Thank you, Olivier. Back to Mai. So Mai, you've attended quite a few Délice gatherings over the years. Each Délice gathering has a topic that we decide to work on. What is the topic where you find the most relevant ideas and that you brought home and shared with the people in Stavanger?
We think that some of the most valuable for us has been to learn from other cities how they have developed strategies for including food into their tourist destination plans to get more attractive, and also for the local inhabitants. And we think that the gathering, which was in Lausanne, were really relevant for us, because there was a focus on how to the local producers and how you can make a city strategy for including this into your food strategies. So I think that maybe has been the most exciting for us. But I think that every time we are away and we come back, we have some new ideas that we try to follow up on. We find all gathering very useful to learn, for learning and knowledge sharing.
Thank you, Mai. And last question to Felipe. You've actually hosted a Délice gathering last year, just a few months after joining us. What were the main outcomes of this experience as a host city for you, as the DMO, as Visit Tucson, but also for the local community? What did it bring to you to have 19, 20 city representatives from around the world coming to your city?
Well, for me, first was the opportunity to showcase my community and share with others. And the reason to sharing, of course, you get excited about welcoming people and host people in your community, but you want to hear their perspective. You want to hear what they are seeing and through their eyes, because I can go and market and promote and talk about Tucson, but if I'm not understanding my customer, if I'm not understanding what's the appeal of our community, it's very challenging too. So for me, that was one of the main outcomes of this meeting. Also, it allowed me to present other individual elected officials, government entities in a community to the Délice Network, and for them to understand the value proposition that Food and Gastronomy brings to the community. They understood it, but I don't think it was very intangible. So by bringing people from other communities to Tucson, it was great for some of those individuals to really connect and understand that value proposition. And the last item, again, it was just the networking, getting to personally know. I think that this is great. I mean, Zoom, I think it's a great technology that I'm seeing people not in Barcelona, and we're connected face to face, but you cannot replace that human interaction. So being able to break bread, almost literally, share, get to know each other. And when you build that rapport and you build that connection, it's easier to get on the phone and call someone and ask for help and support in a project. And that's what I found out. I have got a lot of information. And just my recommendation, if there's any new members here, I always joke about this. I mean, this is not a mentee question, but raise your hand if you pay a membership to a gym. If you're subscribed to a gym or something to do exercise. I do every month. I get my credit card debited. But of course, if you pay your fees to a group or an association like a gym, but you don't go and nothing happens. So remember, this network, it's about not only paying your annual dues, it's taking advantage of the tools that the Délice Network is giving to you. So I really encourage you to don't be shy, don't overthink it. Just connect, communicate, and be engaged in the network. So again, sorry for the long answer, but it's a great network of cities that you can really connect and rely on.
Thank you, Felipe. So now the big question is, how can the network benefit you as a tool? There were several people from different backgrounds who registered to this meeting. I'm not sure who actually made it. Some people told me that the jet lag was too terrible, so they'll follow us on YouTube afterwards, because all of our sessions will be made available on YouTube. But for the people who are here, let's see how the tool can benefit you. So if you can go back to your phones and tell us who you are. Are you representative of a city organization? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you a journalist? Are you a student? Let's see who's here. And I'll just say a few words about how you can, at your level, get involved in the organization, because there's a place in Délice for different people. EVP of Tourism Office. So is it Executive Vice President? Yes, Felipe.
Yeah.
Tourism Office, easy one as a start. So a lot of our cities are represented by the Tourism Office, either as formal member, meaning that the Tourism Office pays the fee, or the municipality pays the fee, but asks the Tourism Office to basically get engaged and follow the everyday life of the organization. So for a tourism office, it's of course how you use food as a way to draw more tourism in your cities, how you can give profit of the tourism industry to your food sector, how you make sure you preserve your local food culture despite the opening to tourism. And this is, for example, a very important aspect in Cali, Colombia, where they're opening to tourism now, and they believe that they need to be careful not to have their food culture threatened by too much international. So they want to have a big work in identifying and preserving their food culture while they open to tourism. So tourism offices are pretty represented in our cities. What else do we have? Member of tourism boards, as we just mentioned. Students. So students, I'm regularly contacted by students who are making studies and research about the importance of food and gastronomy in cities. It's always a pleasure for me to help them out, to give them experiences and ideas from things that are happening in Montreal and Buenos Aires and Guangzhou and in any place. So there is knowledge that is brought together within the network, even though we're not publishing, we're not a publisher, but students can come to us to request some information. And there have been in the past projects involving students. For example, our partner in Izmir, Sirma, has been working with Lyon for many years, bringing culinary students to make some internship in different restaurants in Lyon. So it's something that's been going on for a few years. We had been working last year with Barcelona to see how students could go on study tours in different cities. So yes, there's space for tourism, and we have, of course, some culinary institutes that are involved directly or indirectly within the network. DMO, again, that's the tourism office I mentioned. Economic development manager. So this is very important. We know that food is a huge employer in our cities, that the more independent restaurants and food businesses you have, the more it will attract some more, basically. If you have 2 new restaurants in your city, it will attract 10 new restaurants. And if you have 10 restaurants, it will attract someone who will organize food events. So basically, if you start working on food, it can have huge impacts in terms of economic development and employment. So people working in economic development can really take profit from the Délice tool to see how they can use food for their purpose. Dean of College, Banti Curie, sorry, I'm very sorry, Neil. So food, college of food at the university. So this is a bit linked to what I said about students, but I think it's important for some the universities that are with us, gain knowledge, get some expertise about what's happening around the world, and get some inspiration about projects that they can lead towards their own students. Economic development, UNESCO Creative Cities. So this is our friend Eduardo, who has different hats, so economic development and tourism for the municipality. So it's not the DMO as a tourism office, but it's involved in the official municipality. So here as well, Eduardo is involved in a lot of concrete projects for economic development, for tourism, but also for the well-being of the local community. And food is a huge driver for them. So, so the municipality can, of course, be the main representative within Délice. Municipality, and that is all. But there's a space, of course, for entrepreneurs, chefs, not directly within the network. I received a message from a chef in Tucson, actually, during the night, and he said, can I be involved? Can I be a partner of the network? There's no associated partner, meaning that a chef in Tucson will not pay a fee to be a member of Délice, but he can be connected with his representative, which would be Felipe, for example, and see how he can get value from the network and how he can take part in the different projects. There's space, of course, for journalists who can decide to write about the topic of food on the global context, etc. So there's really a room for everyone. What's important to keep in mind is that the first focus, we are a city network, and it always starts by a city representative, and then it goes down within the different communities. Thank you very much to our 3 guests, and for those of you who stayed to the end of the session. And I wish you all a very good lunch, if it's lunch.